Well, come on in. Come on. Welcome to the principal's office. Don't be scared. We're glad you're here. We've got 30 minutes to get to the bottom of the issue, and the issue is always education. The issue is always topics in education and how they affect our black children in our community differently. We will always be honest and we will always be solution focused. This is where our guests come to explain themselves and how they feel in regards to different education issues. I'm Michelle Penix, so come on in, take a seat. Principal Penix to many. And on today's show, we're going to actually continue a discussion we started last week, virtual learning hubs in the home. But this week, we're excited because we have a special parent guest who has actually started a virtual learning hub. So she's going to be able to give us a lot more information about what that is like. Please welcome to the show today's guest, Miss Kara Mason. Welcome, Kara. We are glad you are here. Now, just in way of transparency, I have to let you know that Kara is talented at many things. Being a parent and a wife is one of those, but I came to know Tara because she is a wonderful seamstress as well. And Kara actually designed my daughter's prom dress. And I will just say, bragging a little bit, I'm going to give her, I'll say about 70% of the credit, and my daughter another 30 for rocking it. But
no, she was beautiful.
She actually had a beautiful prom dress, and so we're glad you're here today, Kara.
Thank you so much.
And today our topic is going to be about virtual learning hubs. So before we get started, tell us a little bit about your family, so everybody can get a sense of who they are.
All right, so we have two boys, Eli and Ricky, and they are 6 and 4. Ricky, he's starting kindergarten this year. We did a private school for JK, junior kindergarten, which was a really good experience. Pre-COVID, we were ready to continue that. But with COVID, we needed an option where we could really get our kids out of the home. So Ricky and I, my husband, Ricky, we're entrepreneurs and we work from home, but our schedules are constantly changing and we knew we couldn't be consistent with our kids. So we needed extra outside help to keep that consistent environment for learning. So like I said, Ricky's in kindergarten. Eli technically is preschool, but we have him learning the same kindergarten curriculum just because we've been working with him at home and we feel like he's ready for it.
Excellent. Yeah. So a couple of things you said just in the intro was consistency was very important.
Yes.
And I'd emphasize that to all of our families. And then I think it's really good that the 4-year-old is getting introduced to the same things as the 6-year. Now, I don't know how that's going to work out in a couple of years when one is when they may be at the same place with different ages, but I think that's wonderful. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about virtual learning hubs and some of the considerations that went into it. So you've kind of given some of your why, but talk to me about just your philosophy in regards to education and what you wanted for your children. Because I heard you even say that he's 6, so did you all start him late or did he just have a late birthday?
Late birthday.
Okay. So,
September birthday.
That figures. Okay, so what was your thoughts about just wanting to do a virtual learning hub and not just saying, we can't be as consistent as we want to, but he can just kind of follow us along with his computer.
Right. No, education is number one for us. Like before we invest in anything, we put money into their education. And since they were 3, we've been trying options for outside learning. So we started them with Mazizi Family Co-op. That homeschool program, I mean, it's an awesome program. Shout out to Kristen.
Absolutely.
But that is what really opened our eyes up to what a pod learning and homeschool would look like. So I went to JCPS my whole career. My mom worked full time. She was a single mom. So I never experienced anything like this. And I didn't know what it was like to teach my child. And me, I'm thinking, am I going to fall short? Like, I'm not a teacher.
Right.
But to see other moms do it, and to have that space of like the nurturing, he's meeting other kids, I'm making connections with other moms, that was awesome. So that's kind of where we started. Like I said, we needed an option that would keep the kids out of the home during the day for us.
Right.
And even going back in person, I know a lot of private schools did go back in person, and our school's one of them. But I just knew if there's someone who gets COVID, they're going to send them all back home.
Right.
And we, with our schedule and everything, we couldn't do that. So yeah, we just really value that they have someone that's dedicated to them and just to learning. There's nothing else that has to be on their mind.
Right. Okay, so let's jump into the who. So
Right.
how did you decide who would be the instructor, and how did you decide about the other family?
And that was hard. I will say that. We started by contacting my grandmother.
Okay.
She's a retired first grade teacher, so that was honestly the best option.
Okay.
But then her schedule, that wouldn't work out. And she's like, I can maybe do a couple days a week, but not every day.
Right. As
full-time.
most grandparents don't want to do every day. Okay.
Right. So then we joined a couple of pod Facebook groups. And so
Okay.
there's one, Pandemic Pods of Louisville, where a lot of moms are on there and dads trying to figure out what are we going to do. And that was almost like just being in a forum. It wasn't focused. It was really hard to connect with people virtually. And then we don't have a lot of friends with kids our ages, or our kids' ages.
Okay.
So I went to care.com. We've used them before for babysitters and had a good experience, but I saw through the Pandemic Pod group that a lot of teachers were seeking kids to bring into their home or to find a family to go to,
Okay.
because they really weren't excited about going back in the classroom either. So through care.com, we put up an ad. We said, you know, we need someone from this time to this time. We prefer an experienced teacher, someone that's certified. And then we put what we wanted to pay on there, and we had about 5 people apply. So we actually
Excellent.
went through an interview process with all of them. So it was long, but it was definitely worth it.
So when you say long, you're talking about the process from getting the 5 names to actually selecting. Are we
Right.
talking about days, weeks?
We were at this, I would say, for probably a month to a month and a half,
Oh, wow.
just to
Okay.
narrow it down to one person. And I talked to her first, then Ricky and I met her in person.
Okay.
Then we brought the kids. And once there was another family involved, we didn't know the other family ahead of time. She brought the other family in, so we had a couple of days too where the kids meshed together before we made a final decision, just to make sure everybody in the group is on the same page and will actually get along.
Excellent. And that's not very different from what you would find in a public school. I mean, you just
Right.
send them into school and hope that they make friends and everybody likes them. But
Exactly.
yeah, but when you're paying out of your own pocket, you
You
want
really
a little
wanna
bit
be
more.
sure.
Okay.
And we did kind of want someone they didn't know, because just from having to homeschool them back in March and April, we realized they don't take school seriously with us. You know, we're
Right.
family. And so we wanted that experience where, okay, I have to be on my best behavior. This is my teacher. That, you know, these are my
yes.
classmates.
And that's
So
really
that helped.
smart, but also I think honorable, and also a sign of, you know, just how fortunate you are that you are able to do that, because a lot of parents, you know, don't have that same opportunity. But I've heard stories, and matter of fact, on the show we had a couple weeks ago, we had parents talk about her 5-year-old was having a hard time because he could not understand, what do you mean I'm going to school?
Right.
I'm in the living room.
Right.
Why, you know, I'm in the kitchen. This is not school. So being able to set the tone, I'm sure went a long way. Okay, so you've got the teacher, you've got the small group. What about location? How did you all decide how that would happen?
Her home. Yeah, we said in the ad that
Okay.
we would want the teacher to be able to host.
Okay, so
Our
actually
kids.
go to their home. Okay.
Right. Because again, if they're in our house, they're not going to take that seriously. But that was tough, because then you're like, okay, well, they're going to someone else's home. And then, like you mentioned, COVID safe. You know, so we had to hash out, okay, what is your cleaning routine like? We are restricting our travel, you know, and then you agree to restrict your travel, or let us know if you travel outside of Louisville. Just who have you been in contact with, that kind of thing. So we do weekly updates with, you know, the teacher and the other family to make sure that everybody's trying to adhere to the same rules.
And so when you met, you got a chance to meet the other family, as you said,
Right.
before the kids have actually got to meet each other.
Right.
And so tell me, as a parent and trying to stay COVID safe, I imagine there's a level of trust that you have to have going into this.
Yes, we do. And every time we met, we had masks on, because we were saying, okay, this is going to be the start date.
So we wanna-
Right, and the kids, they're so young. We want them to have an environment where they don't have to wear a mask. They can stay socially distanced in the home, and then they do a lot of outside time. But in order to do that, we have to quarantine ourselves as families. You know.
That makes sense. That's really good. Okay, so now let's talk about curriculum. So how did you approach that? What does that look like?
So the other family is enrolled in Lincoln Elementary. They're doing NTI, and so that was kind of our guideline. So what should our kids learn in kindergarten? That's where we started.
Okay.
We strongly believe in STEM education, so we enhance.
And explain what STEM is.
Science, technology, engineering, and math.
Okay.
My husband, I guess full disclosure, owns BrainSTEM, which is a STEM education company.
Okay.
So that is where a lot of our philosophy comes from and why we want to reinforce STEM learning even in kindergarten. So we're using Lincoln Elementary's program for like reading and writing, and then for math and science, we're supplementing that with the BrainSTEM curriculum.
Excellent. And so this was a conversation you had with the teacher and with the other family. Is that something they wanted to do as well?
Yeah, they were really excited about it. So it's almost like an exchange. You know, if you share what you get from Lincoln, we'll share our curriculum with you. And that has really been just the spirit of the pod. Like, so even with supplies, we wrote down a list of everything that we thought we would need. And we put down more than we thought, you know, construction paper, whiteboards, markers, everything you'd see in the classroom, and then we split that up. All right, you're gonna get this, we'll get this. And we tried to buy what we thought is gonna be a semester-long supply. We'll see how that goes. So some things like that were kind of hard to plan, but I like the flexibility of being able to say, okay, we can kind of roll with the punches, but as long as everyone involved is invested in the kids, I think that's what makes it work.
All right, so talk to us a little bit about the BrainSTEM curriculum. What exactly does that look like for 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds?
Right, so like I said, science, technology, engineering, and math. We really focus a lot on the engineering and math piece when they're this young, just to get them into computational thinking. So it's not teaching them engineering concepts, but more so how to put steps in order. Before you act, let's make a plan. Let's think about the best way to implement something. So with kids, it's a lot of sorting, it's a lot of putting things in order, and just to get their minds in that engineering mode. And that's what's really going to help them at this age.
So have you gotten any feedback from the other parents who maybe haven't been exposed? Because I'm sure little Ricky and Elijah have been exposed, but have you gotten any feedback from those parents?
Yeah, I think what they think is the most fun is exploring a lot of the different tools we have. So there's like Botley is a little robot that teaches, I mean, it's geared toward 3 to 5-year-olds. It's the easiest robot to use, but it's geared toward teaching them the early steps of programming. And I think it's like $30.
Okay.
And so we have one of those, and the kids, they'll practice programming that robot, and that's like a highlight of their class time. So we use a lot of STEM toys and things they can hold in their hands, Legos, and that's what really gets the kids excited.
Okay, so now let me ask you this, because this is probably a question they're having. Talk to me about feedback, grading, progress monitoring. How does that look in this model?
So for us, one thing I was really surprised about was how little guidance there is from the state regarding homeschool and how little reporting you as a parent have to do. So I guess that's good and bad. It was kind of bad for us because we couldn't go to the state for guidance, but good in the sense that we determine, you know, how they're evaluated. Personally, I feel like kindergarten is too young for any type of test. But what we do are weekly reports. So we get with our teacher every week and say, these are the goals that we want to have for this week. So here's a list of sight words, here's some math concepts. And then on Friday, we check in, what work did they do? They keep a folder with worksheets and things like that, so we can look weekly at how our kids are progressing.
Okay, excellent. Well, I'll just give you a hint that, they are too young, and we want to encourage them to be able to use their curiosity, and especially using STEM to make sure that, you know, wherever direction it goes, that they can follow and not necessarily have to be dependent on a letter grade or even a standardized test. Okay, so then talk to me about values the values that you and your husband hold around discipline.
Yes.
Because I'd imagine that, going into someone else's home, working with other kids are kids, somebody's going to get, be mad at each other one day. So how was that discussion and how does that look?
So when we met with the parents of the other kids, we just asked, how do you discipline your kids? What are some things that you would punish them for? What are some redirection tools that you use? And we were able to really learn from each other. And say, okay, this technique works from us. Oh, that sounds like a good idea. And the teachers involved in the whole thing. So it really, you have to just have like an open and honest discussion.
Transparency.
Right,
yeah.
About what you do in your home and make sure that everybody is on board. And like you said, we know kids are going to be kids. And these are 4, 5-year-old boys. So
Okay, so what times do you use? Because we talked about, making sure that time was a part of the discussion. So when do your kids... When are they in this virtual hub?
So they're there from 8:30 to 3, but learning like hardcore, they're maybe doing something on the computer, they're working on a worksheet, is really just from 8 to noon.
Okay.
And then lunchtime, and then the afternoon is for recess. So they go outside. One thing that we want to implement as soon as like COVID allows is taking weekly trips to the Science Center or the zoo, or just being able to explore those amenities and use those as learning tools.
Excellent. And so do you expect, well, let me ask you this first. What has surprised you? What lessons have you already learned that you can share?
That it's a lot more work than I thought. When you send a kid to school, you kind of don't think about it until parent-teacher conference, or until report cards come, or until there's an event you have to go to at the school. But I will say with this pod, even though we were able to get someone else to facilitate the learning, we're still involved daily because you're in charge of your kids' education. And ultimately, it's like the responsibility falls on you, even more so than I feel like it did pre-COVID.
Right. Well, now you had an experience with the homeschooling co-op, Mazizi.
Yes.
And then now doing this, do you foresee, I'm sure you understand the importance, but is this something you foresee continuing
Yes.
through your child's education?
I think so. It's really the flexibility of the schedule. That's the best part. And being able to, okay, if my kid is doing really well in math, let's scale up math. Let's give him 2nd, 3rd grade math if that's what he needs. But if he's struggling in reading, okay, we can take a little more time there. So it's being able to pinpoint your child's strengths and weaknesses and then tailoring what you're doing to that.
Wow. Well, now let me ask you this without being too specific, and I'm sure that, the other parents share in some of the costs.
Yes.
But give me a range. What does this look like for an average family? What do you think they could expect to spend a week?
So we pay hourly because that was just easiest to put on care.com the way it was set up. And then since having a business, we've had employees, so we actually just added her on as one of our employees, which helped with that system. But $15 to $20 an hour is what I was seeing on care.com.
Okay.
But a lot of the teachers that were posting that hourly rate were only expecting to be with the kids for about 4 hours a day. So they're, I do know about another homeschool program, McFalls Academy.
Yeah.
And Shelby Park, I think she was like $150 a week.
Yes.
So, but that is the hard part. That cost is a factor, and that's why I've been following you on Facebook with these NTI hubs. Like, we need that.
Yes, absolutely.
We definitely need that because you really see it. I mean, as parents, like, I know I'm not always the most patient, and having to teach a 5-year-old every day and try to keep him focused on a computer, it gets hard.
Yeah.
And I think that every parent deserves that choice to be able to say a couple of days a week, my kid can socialize with other kids. They can be led by someone else to help them through their schoolwork. Yeah, it's still needed, even if it's not exactly safe to go back in school yet.
Absolutely. And just to give credit and the props to some of the people that we've mentioned so that it's amazing how God puts people in your life and you just kind of cycle through them with different people you meet. But we've talked about Mazizi Homeschool Cooperative here in the city of Louisville. under the direction of Kristen Williams, a wonderful program. It's a part of Play Cousins Collective. So if you are a parent in our city, it comes highly recommended. They are actually seeing students now through virtual classroom lessons. And then you've mentioned as well, it wasn't Mazizi, it was
McFalls?
Yes,
Academy?
McFalls
Yeah.
Academy. Jasmine McFalls, she has a 5-year-old academy program here in the city of Louisville. She just opened up this year. It is so exciting to see so many different people coming out of their shells, so to speak, and doing things differently. I think Kristen kind of provided a path for others to follow, so she deserves a lot of credit. But I am extremely excited by all of the people who are doing different things. I know that we have the Butterfly School here in Louisville, as well as Liberated Minds. We talked about McFalls Academy. We talked about Mazizi. I know that Coleman Prep Academy is in the process of starting. There are a couple of churches that are also Destiny Academy, holding schools and sessions. So there's a lot of different choices that parents have. And I'm excited to know that we're still talking about that $15 to $20 range hourly rate, which I know for many families would be difficult. But again, think about joining with other people, thinking about, you know, do you need full day? Can this happen a couple of hours a day? Another thing that you mentioned that I think is fascinating is that you guys said, okay, well, from 8 to 12, about 4 hours a day of instruction, and then the rest of the day is different, used differently. And so I think it's a model that we need to have a lot of conversations about in public school as well, because 7.5 hours, I think parents now understand that's a long time. That's a long time. Well, before we leave out of here, anything else you'd like to share about your experience, or any thing that you think parents need to know?
So I mentioned BrainSTEM, that we're using that to enhance our curriculum. Currently, 6th through 12th grade students can enroll in BrainSTEM online. The web address is BrainSTEM. It's BrainSTEMU.com. And when you get on there, you can register for a STEM magnet program for your child. So
excellent.
Yeah, and it's completely virtual. It is instructor led, which is great. There's live instructors online to help them with their work, but we have coding with Minecraft. So I think that's something that kids would really be into, you know, taking a game that they already play and then helping them learn something productive behind it.
Oh, absolutely. And considering I've never played Minecraft and I don't know how to code, I might be starting up on BrainSTEMU.com. All right, so make sure if you're out there, you give that a look. Make sure that you consider opening or starting your own virtual learning hub. In this season of transition for so many of us, it's time for us to take our own kids' education into our hands and make decisions that are best for them. We appreciate the work that the public school system has done, but there are options, and you as a parent get to make those decisions. So I'm Michelle Penix, or Principal Penix to most, and that's a wrap for today. You've been the best. This has been a great hour, or a great half an hour of conversation with Ms. Kara Mason. And join us next week as we dig deeper into virtual learning or any other topic that may be associated with education in America and how it affects our Black children. So I'll see you next week, same time, same place, right here. And as always, to God be the glory.